Welcome back, everybody. It's week 7 of the GoGamecocks.com preview show. Gamecocks are 5-1, coming off a 52-7 win over Arkansas.
Didn't call that.
No, it was the performance that South Carolina and their fans had been waiting for after a few games of up and down. You were 4-1 going into that, but you weren't sure you felt great about being 4-1. Now you feel a lot better about being 5-1. What did you see against Arkansas that you thought was the best thing?
Well, really, Josh, just playing a complete game. Yeah. I mean, the defense, which, as Steve Spurrier pointed out, hadn't been that bad. They've just had a lot of bad fourth quarters. They played a complete game. They shut down Alex Collins, who was the SEC's leading rusher. Right. The offense kept doing what it was doing. Yeah, they got some breaks, overall, but, going into a place where they historically have played terribly and winning by 45 points, thrust yourself right back into the SEC race. I mean, that was impressive to watch. USC, I guess, kind of in a sense, reclaimed the season, even though it was never really lost, but just said, they're here to stay now.
I think so, and you combine that with about the same time Georgia was losing to Missouri. Yep. A lot of reasons now for South Carolina to be more confident than they were a week ago at this time. Now, Steve Spurrier comes into the postgame press conference. He sits down immediately and says, "Can we do it again?" You wrote some about this right after the game. You look back to the last time South Carolina had such a dominant effort, 54-3 against Kentucky. The next week, they go to Mississippi State, and they really scuffle to get a win. Granted, that was the game Marcus Lattimore was injured the first time, but they were scuffling before Lattimore was hurt. So I think that Steve Spurrier kind of, whether consciously or not, went back to that game in his mind, wants to make sure that this team doesn't get overconfident. Again, on Tuesday, he said, "We're not hot stuff yet. We got to back this up." They've got 2 more road games in this 3-game stretch. Do you think that they can carry, not necessarily a 52-7 win over, but that kind of play over?
Well, Josh, I don't think overconfidence is going to be a problem. If Steve Spurrier sees that in practice, all he's got to do is show them film of the last 3 fourth quarters before the Arkansas game.
Right.
Say, remember this? How an interception had to save you and a recovered onside kick had to save you? They're not that good to start preaching about how good they are.
Right.
And right now, I think that everybody's enthused about somehow they've gotten back into this race. They're not out of it yet, and that they know, hey, we're back in it. We just got to take care of our business, and maybe everybody else will knock each other off and leave us the best guy standing at the end. So I don't think overconfidence is going to be a problem, but as we all know, it's 2 straight games on the SEC, and those are never going to be easy.
So Tennessee is next. This is not your father's Tennessee team or even your older brother's Tennessee team. This was a Tennessee team that for years owned South Carolina. Now South Carolina has really reversed that series and taken Tennessee's place in the top half of the SEC. They're on their 7th coach in 5 years or whatever it is, 3rd coach. Butch Jones is the coach now. He's first-year coach. Everybody talks great about Butch Jones, but they're still not a very good football team. 2 weeks ago, they had the close loss against Georgia. They have had a bye week. Maybe they do something with it. What about Tennessee worries you, Dave, if you're a South Carolina fan?
I think it's just the unpredictability about it, Josh. I mean, you don't know what Tennessee's going to bring. I mean, by the stats, they're 11th in the league in total offense and total defense. Well, that's not real scary. And then you look at who they've won against: Austin Peay, South Alabama, Western Kentucky. And who have they lost against? Some really good teams, Georgia and Florida and Oregon,
No shame in
So you don't really know what you're going against. The only thing I really know about him personally is that Justin Worley's the quarterback. And, Justin has got a great arm, but he's just not a very complete quarterback. I mean, I think he's thrown 6 picks and 9 touchdowns, and he's going to be the guy. And plus, as you mentioned, they're coming off a bye week. I just don't know what you see coming out of this Tennessee team, although the fact that, something that escaped me, they do have a 100-yard-a-game rusher in Ray John Neal. So USC is going to have to keep an eye on him.
And they do still have those big offensive tackles, Tiny Richardson, Jawan James.
It's going to be tough to get pressure on Worley.
They got a couple of monsters in the middle of the defensive line. So their line of scrimmage are okay. Maybe that gives them a chance. I'm not so sure. South Carolina, although they're not as beat up as Georgia, and they're certainly not as beat up as Florida, who I don't know how they're still fielding the team, limping in a little bit to Tennessee. Bruce Ellington was added to the injury list with a strained foot. Cody Waldrop still nursing that ankle. Sky Moore and Chaz Elder, we thought Chaz Elder was going to jump into the starting lineup. Now all of a sudden he's got a concussion. Ronald Patrick, probably the most injured, unlikely to play, you would think, against the Vols. Now you got to shuffle your offensive line. Cody Waldrop might have fit there, but he's injured. Do you think that these kind of things are going to hurt them against the Vols, or do you think they can overcome what they've got?
It's going to be something to see, Josh, because one good thing is that Sean Elliott reps all those offensive linemen at every position. So it's not like whoever takes the role of Patrick is going to be unfamiliar. But is it a simple thing where you plug in another guy like Natai Rodgers?
Right.
Or do you have to start reshuffling, moving Cody Waldrop maybe over to guard and having him play there? I think it might affect them a little bit. I'm sure Tennessee is looking at that and will want to rush against that right side of the line and try to put some pressure on Connor Shaw. But if the USC offense just keeps doing what it's doing, which is getting those receivers open and having a steady dose of Mike Davis, I don't think it'll be anything to really be concerned about.
Right. I think I picked first last week, so I'm going to give David the honor this week. What do you think? What do you see in Knoxville?
Obviously, Josh, I mean, there is the unknown quantity about Tennessee. It is on the road. But the way USC played last week, and, I don't think that I would have picked this game as a win before the season. I think it'll be even more of a win now. I'm going to go with USC 35, Tennessee 14.
I see a lot the same thing. I think that the Vols might have something crazy for South Carolina because they really need a win. They've had 2 weeks to get ready. Maybe they do something completely out of the box and keep it close for a quarter. But I just don't see Tennessee providing a four-quarter fight. I think that South Carolina does carry over the way it played to Arkansas to some degree. I think you start looking ahead to Missouri in 2 weeks. That's a much tougher test. But I don't think Tennessee has got much for South Carolina. I'm going to go 30-18 South Carolina. We both got the Gamecocks being 6-1 the next time we talk.
Bowl eligible.
We'll see you then.